Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Finale, and this is Real Estate Talk TGIF, episode 317, which makes it 313 weeks in a row. That is just one over 6 years. We do this broadcast to give back to the real estate industry. We've been doing it for 6 years. We want to keep doing it. Today, we have, I think, one of the coolest people I've met in this business over the last number of years, and I've been in a few. Kendall Bonner. Kendall has grown her own team in Tampa. She also is now the vice president for industry relations with eXp Realty, a company I know and love. And it's just so cool to watch our business evolve. And with this person, Kendall, involved in helping our business evolve, it is really exciting. Kendall, thank you so much for being on the broadcast today.
Thank you, Dave. It's amazing to be here. I'm honored. It's such a privilege.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good conversation. But before we get started, Nelson, hit the videotape. Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team. And here we are back, and this is how we start. And we're really excited today because Kendall Bonner, you and I spoke a few weeks ago, and I got really excited about everything you do and what you stand for. Evolution of the business is something we talked about. We really, truly agree upon. I've been working on that my entire career, all 40 plus years of it, and especially over the past 10 to 15 and 20. But, the thing is that our business is not that crazy as far as what we have to do. We know what we have to do. And the problem is that everybody complicates it. But before I start asking you questions, I do have one quick question that I ask everybody on this broadcast. It is, what does TGIF stand for?
Oh, gosh. For me, thank God it's Friday. Yay.
Most people. That's most people. But that's not the answer. The answer is really simple. It's thank God it's finale. So,
that's even better. I love that.
Isn't it? So Kendall, here we are. Again, this is Real Estate Talk TGIF number 317. Brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder, and it's brought to you to help agents build through client acquisition. And that's the most important part of what our jobs are, which is lead generation, client acquisition. But before we get into that kind of question and that kind of information, tell me about your journey and what led you to where you are today, and how you did it. And you've done some different things than most people have done. So talk to me about your story and your journey.
Yeah. So, my story is, as most people know, I am also an attorney. And went to law school. My mom said, JD, MD, PhD, pick one. And so I decided to go to law school in California. I ended up with a full scholarship for my legal tuition. I went to a private school in Los Angeles, and it was there that I decided I did not want to actually practice law. That was my intention. I wanted the degree because I thought I would go back to school and get a PhD after, because I just felt like I needed more time, because I graduated law school at 24 years old. So in my mind, I was still a baby, and I knew that. And so, and then my joke in law school was that I would walk out of there with my MRS degree. And I was just kidding, but be careful what you say out loud, because things come true. And I ended up marrying my husband on Saturday and graduating on Sunday. So I did walk away from law school as Mrs. Bonner instead of Kendall Clark, which is my maiden name. So my husband and I, like I said, married on Saturday, graduated law school on Sunday. By Tuesday, we were in the car driving from Los Angeles, California to Tampa, Florida, to begin our life together and our family, and, also to take the Florida bar. So we studied that summer. And my husband was like, yeah, you have to practice law, babe. We have student loans to pay, because I had student loans from undergrad. And, I started practicing law. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. It just wasn't my passion.
Right.
And so I did stuff like criminal defense for a couple of years. So I did jury trials. I picked juries. I did all of that. I also did workers' comp insurance defense. I traveled in the entire state of Florida doing mediations, depositions, and other type of proceedings. And then my husband ended up starting a bankruptcy law firm back in 2005, and I joined him in 2007. And, I had my own law firm for a while. And it was during that time that I realized that I was open and willing to do something else. And so, with the support of my husband, I got my real estate license. And as soon as I got my real estate license in 2011, is when this occurred, I realized that being a real estate agent was not a part-time job. It was a full-time
Right.
career. And
Right.
so I quickly, and when I say quickly, I mean within weeks of getting licensed, hanging it with a brokerage, realized that I went to every training my brokerage had. And after 30 days, I walked out of there with 2 listings and never looked back, and just started as a listing agent and fell in love. And then after that, like, became a broker owner, and I did that for almost a decade. And I've learned a lot across my journey that brings me to where I'm at today, for sure.
So a lot of people get in the business and they get deals really quickly, and all of a sudden, they get this confidence, right? So I'll tell you a quick story that I work with a lot of different agents, mostly newer, and those that are stuck. And I had an agent that, she said, came to me several months ago. Her goal was, came to me in October. Her goal was to do her first deal by February this year. She did 2 deals within 6 weeks of us working together. And then she comes to me on January 3rd and says, you know what? I've done a couple of deals. I'm really comfortable with what I'm doing. I'm just going to take it easy for a while. Okay. Most agents don't take it easy for a while. They just don't get any business for a while. And then 4 weeks later, she comes in and says, you know what, Dave, I don't know where my next check's coming from. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. Can you help me? How, when you went from those first 2 deals in those 30 days, what catapulted you to keep going? I mean, why didn't you have that mindset where, shit, I got 2 checks, I can do whatever I want?
Oh, never.
Well, yeah, that's you and me, but
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, one of the things that, I mean, I came from a household and a family with a very strong work ethic, right? So it's like my mom did not take breaks. That's just not what I had seen. So for me, I didn't know any better. It was even like I said, remember how young I was when I graduated law school? I'd wanted to take a break between college and law school. My mom was like, no, you need to keep going. And there was just this understanding that momentum, it takes time to build momentum. And when you slow down that momentum, you have to start all over again. So why do that?
right.
So, for me, I just understood that this is there's this like rolling, like what you do today impacts you, especially in real estate, 3 to 6 months from now. And so whenever you pause today, you are ensuring that you are going to not have as much to do 3 to 6 months from now. Or at least you're not going to have a paycheck.
It's
So
a
is what
simple law of momentum.
Yeah, it's all about momentum. And, it's like a train, it takes a long time to get that train going, but once it's going really fast. And it takes a while, to slow it down. But once you slow it down and you stop it, you have to start over again. That entire process starts all over again.
So you got your first 2 deals in that 30 days. You did everything you were told to do, and then you went from basically 0 to 200 deals, right?
Oh, well, that's actually something different. That's a different story.
Right. So talk to me. Okay. So yeah. So tell me how you kept going and then get there.
Yeah. So I like once I started listing homes, that was my introduction into real estate. I didn't even know how to work with a buyer for the first probably 18 months of my career, because my brokerage taught me listings were the key to success in real estate. So my journey was, I worked at a brokerage. I was a solo listing agent. I got recruited there to another company, started a small team at the second company. And then I ended up getting recruited to open my own brokerage. So that was in 2014. I started my brokerage 0, no agents, or an agent of 1 myself, because I split up my team when I did the brokerage thing, because I just my honor and integrity said I didn't come to that brokerage with the team, so I'll leave with what I came into that company with,
Right.
which is just my business. And so I started my brokerage and I built that up to, over 60 agents at one point, and over 200 million in volume a year. Like, we had done a lot with that brokerage and a strong but mighty staff. And then in 2021, I started a team. Again, because I had gotten myself out of production. I was leveraged out. I was just a broker owner and leader for almost a decade.
Right.
And then I decided in 2021 after COVID to start a team. And that I also started from zero, from scratch, and no brand, no sphere of influence, no Zillow, nothing. And then when starting that team in 2021 to 2023, and those 2 years, I took a team where I did not produce. So I was completely leveraged out from that perspective. And I taught newer and I'll say is underperforming agents how to transact. And we closed from 0 to 200 sides and 80 million in volume within 2 years from a team of basically new agents with my husband and I. So that's the Kendall Bonner team.
What did you tell them? How did you get that done? What was this? Is there a secret sauce? Is there a silver bullet? Is there a freaking shiny object that everybody's looking for? Kendall, how did you do that?
So definitely no secret sauce, no shiny object. I'll tell you what it took. It was a lot of hard lessons, but I will tell you this. This was my secret, actually. And it's not really a secret because anybody can do it. It was a wisdom or a lesson my mother taught me when I was like 16 years old, which was you do not have to make the mistake to learn the lesson. And so that wisdom has stayed with me my entire life. So what does that mean? And how did I apply that to starting my team? Before I even spent a dime on creating my team, I called all of my friends who I knew were successful team leaders and I interviewed them. I had pages of notes from talking to so many of them. I interviewed them. I asked them questions. What did they do right? What did they do wrong? What would they do differently if they could start their team over again? You know, what wisdom did they have to give to me? And I literally took all the knowledge and experience from all of these great minds from these relationships I had, and I used that to apply to my team. So I think it helped me fast track by learning the lessons of my friends, saying, okay, I don't have to repeat that mistake because they've taught me that that was a mistake that they had made, and I was able to fast track that. So I think that if there was a secret, that would be it. That I think helped me compared to other team leaders out there who I think don't take the time to do the homework and the investigation and the planning to start their team before they actually start their team. And I did that. I wrote out a whole blueprint, a whole plan based on all of the knowledge and information I had gained from my friends and other successful agents out there and brokers and leaders, so that I could, mirror what they did right and avoid what they perceived they had done wrong. So I think that was really super influential in helping me fast track. And I hired a coach. I hired John Cheplack, who's one of the top teams coaches in the world, in the country. And
Yep.
those things were, also key to my success, those first few years.
I think one of the things is there is coachability and listening and planning. I mean, the planning has a lot to do with building a successful business, and that planning has to include not just I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to make calls, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to knock on doors, or whatever it is, because people look at that and say, well, shit, I don't want to do that, right? And that's crazy. But if you're able to take systems, which I'm sure you put together, and leverage the systems and make sure that every time you move forward, okay, what is this system telling me? What is this telling me? Because one of the things I do is I make sure that everyone's in their CRM, because I can see everything and help everybody that way. Talk to me about the systems that you've employed and how they've helped you leverage your business to grow.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the big ones we did that I think a lot of teams miss is we employed EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I think my husband was inspired. We went to an operations training that Dan Beer did with John Cheplack and got turned on to the book Traction.
Yep.
Gino. And my husband took that so seriously, and he went back home and he found the book. He made all of his staff read the book. Like he bought copies because they have also one for the leaders and they have one for like employees of an EOS system. And so the employees on our team got that version. Bill and I and the leadership, we got the primary version, and we all had to read it. And then he immediately started implementing quarterly and annual meetings, We built OKRs, which is objectives and key results for all the various departments. I mean, we have a fully fleshed out operational agenda and plan. And he sticks to that, and he is committed to implementing that in our company. And so, and we built out all the different pieces of that entrepreneurial operating system. And that's his mastery, not mine. I'll be honest, but I will say this: it was fundamental and key to us being very organized, us getting more stuff done each quarter. And really, because we jokingly say we're building a plane while falling off the cliff, right? Because remember, our team was so new; we started from zero.
Right.
So, I really do think that, and even to this day, we still operate EOS. We still have quarterly and annual meetings. We still have objectives and key results. We still build quarterly rocks. We are very committed to that. That, I think, has been key to helping our company really live and be built like a company and like a business, right? So that's been super valuable.
Yeah. So from being familiar with EOS and traction and rocket fuel,
Yeah.
another great book. I was going to ask you about objectives and key results. So
Yeah.
your objectives and key results, everything is based on the rocks that you set up. And I was going to mention that. So talk to me when you first got going, right? Rocks. Explain rocks and what were your first set that you keyed in on?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I would not remember the first rocks because that would have been a few years ago now. But quarterly rocks are basically your quarterly goals for the quarter, right? Like, so these are the projects that you want to work on for that quarter to build something. Like, for example, we've been building things like, hey, how are we going to how are we updating our agent training and onboarding, right? That could be a quarterly rock. Like, what's the plan, and fully fleshing that out, building that out. Because our team, like, we literally document everything. So we do have a written plan, and whether it's written checklist and things like that we were using. We used to, we moved away from Monday, but in the beginning, we leveraged Monday.com a lot to help organize
Right.
our staff and our team, for example. And so, like, a quarterly rock could be building out Monday for all the systems and processes for onboarding an agent, offboarding an agent, for example. So it's things like that, and it's really building out the operations of your company, and not just, and there's a focus too on sales. Like, we have a sales department with OKRs. We have we'll have one for the administrative department. We have OKRs for agent development, OKRs for agent recruiting and attraction. We have OKRs for retention. Again, I don't remember all of them personally because
Right.
I'm actually no longer running the team. My husband runs it now, but if you asked him, he'd know. He'd probably be able to, from memory, tell you all that stuff.
No, exactly. I mean, I mentioned at the opening about the evolution of real estate, and
Yeah.
everything you're talking about is how your team evolves and how you grew everything. And I mentioned systems and processes and stuff, and you had to evolve through that. Um, when you got started with your team and as a real estate agent, 13 years ago or so, what has changed for you as far as, I don't mean procedurally, but mindset wise? What is the change from beginning to where you are now? Because a lot of people don't understand. I think a lot of agents, they get stuck in this, I'm doing okay. I got 6 deals and I got a living and everything else. And then they say, well, I wish I could do better. And their goal is, I just want to do better than last year. When I had my brokerage, Kendall, I heard that so often, and I just wanted to scream, because that's not a goal. So
Yeah.
where does the mindset change, and how did your mindset evolve from
Yeah.
your very beginning?
That's a great question. And I will say, in two major ways, I think my personal evolution has evolved, especially as it relates to mindset. Number one, there's a shift from micro to macro, right? So, like, in the beginning, you tend to think very self-centeredly, very selfishly, like, how do I make my next paycheck, right? Like, how do I get my next deal? And it's very I. Today, I don't think about myself at all. I think industry. How do we protect our industry, right? So, like, it's a very micro to macro shift. That's number one for me. The second thing that I think I shifted as well was I think I moved away from what I call the production trap to the mindset of leverage. So it's like, hey, in the beginning you think that your best life is on the end of selling more houses versus today, how do I build leverage? How do I make money while I sleep in real estate? So to me, that is probably the two biggest things that I've shifted from day one to day, 5,060, whatever it's been, that I've been in the industry now. So those to me, I think are the big things. Like definitely I think more leverage now. How do I make money? Whether, where I'm not trading time for money anymore. And to also have multiple revenue streams, like it's all leverage to me. And number two, how do I help others like add value to the industry as a whole,
I think the idea of leverage is like really, it's not really thought about a lot by newer agents and agents that are, in the grind and having the grit to move forward. And what I mean by that is, as you said, I mean, the change you made was from production,
Yeah.
from me, and then the mindset of leverage, me, but how do I make things work and move forward? And we used the word earlier, momentum, which I believe really makes an awful lot of sense when we look at production to leverage. You have to take your momentum of the work you're doing every day, to momentum it to, if I can use that as a verb, to leverage, to make sure that your business keeps moving forward, and then with the systems and processes to move forward. And I think that is the key point that a lot of our industry doesn't really see. And they're worried about, like, you went from I to we to industry, basically, right? And the I can be the leverage. I'm sorry, the shift from I to we can be I making money for myself and my family, to we making sure that I'm really helping more people, and it's going to leverage it for myself as well. Does that all make sense to you? And what would you like to add to that, if anything?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it's our industry. What the beautiful thing about our industry is that it offers such diverse opportunity, and agents just have to grasp that. And I think sometimes it's overwhelming, all the opportunity that this industry offers. But I have to say, like, one of my biggest ahas was, my mother was an entrepreneur. My husband was born to be an entrepreneur. I realized that my personal best it wasn't for me about entrepreneurship, it was about leadership. And leadership is where I learned to embrace leverage and industry and we and all of that, and recognizing that we're all leaders all the time. Sometimes we acknowledge we're leaders, sometimes we do not. And, those of us out there that think they're not leaders, you are. If you are helping buyers and sellers, you are a leader. They are looking to you to lead them through that transaction, regardless of whether you are on a team, for example, or not, or you're an independent agent and you don't have a team. Like, you don't need those outwardly expressions of people following you per se to necessarily recognize leadership. You are leading every day. And so I just encourage people to embrace that and the bigger picture around that. Cause I know that for me was my passion, was I wanted to be in leadership positions.
So leadership, leading your client, leading your customer, leading other people. There's a, I look at real estate agents. I work with a lot of new ones, on a lot of stuff ones, a lot of teams, a lot of people transitioning from one business to another, or one, industry to another. And, it's this thing, when people get that real estate license, that real estate salesperson license, they automatically change who they are.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't mean people are doing it consciously. I mean, and this is a rut, and something that is difficult for coaches and mentors and trainers like myself to have them understand that, hey, look, you're just here to help people. Your goal is to help people by making it easy for them to talk to you, not calling them and telling them how great you are, because nobody really gives a shit, right? I mean, most people care about themselves. So you have to look at it from this, what's in it for me. So the leadership that you're talking about has to be, how do I lead them to make it easier for them to talk to me? So as I move forward, I can get stuff done for them. And in the final stage will mean that I make money. Is there a key? Is there something that you've done? I mean, you've worked, if I understand correctly, you work with people that want to work. That's something that you and I have very much in common. We don't want to work with people that really just want to put in the time. Like all of a sudden they're doing really well and then they disappear for 2 weeks, or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Oh yeah, well, I had some things to do. I got a couple of checks. How do you lead and coach and mentor that to something else, or can't you?
That's a great question. I remember early on in my leadership journey, I'll never forget this. I had an agent say to me, Kendall, you care more about your agents and their business than they care about their business.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was an aha for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm so passionately committed to them succeeding, but it's important that I not be more committed to it than they are.
There you go. That's the question I was going to ask you. You can't want it more than they do.
No. And I do believe the heart of a great leader is a servant heart, right? So it does require us to humble ourselves. And, as a part of your first initial part of that question, I'll say this. My mother was sick and had dementia basically all through her 50s. I was responsible personally for taking care of her. I was her legal guardian. I was her trustee. I had to manage all of her assets, her care, her everything for quite some time, for many, many, many years. But I learned something watching my mother and taking care of her through her illness and her ultimate passing. And what I walk away from that whole experience was never anger. It was forgiveness. It was humility. It was gratitude. And it allowed me to perceive my own life and my future very differently because of that experience. And it caused me to think more, like, why wait for tomorrow, what I can work on today, what I can do today, because tomorrow's not promised. It made me think, I'm so grateful for everything I have because it could always be worse. And that also kept me humble because I said, I can always do better. And so these are my guiding principles as a leader. And these frame my thoughts. This frames how I speak to people. It frames how I treat people. And so I feel like at the end of the day, as a leader, you're a magnet. And you're going to attract what, is magnetized to you, and you're going to repel what, is the opposite of you, or what you stand against. And so because I've framed my mindset this way and the way that I speak, I find that I tend to attract the people that want to be a part of the mindset that I have, and they want to be influenced by it, and they want to be encouraged by that. And the people that struggle with those things, that are repelled by those things, they're repelled. And I'm grateful to repel them. I don't have a problem with that. That's perfect for both of us. And and I'm fully okay with that. And I think, like, one of the mistakes some leaders make is they want to help everybody, and that's not sustainable. It's not healthy, and it's not always a good experience for everyone involved. Because one of the things I also learned, because I went through that phase as well, where I just wanted to help everybody, is that then the people that truly do want to be a part of your world, they're turned off because there's this other group in your world who don't click, who don't make sense. They're the opposite. And now you're not holding standards, you're not holding principles, and now you're making excuses. And like, it leads to this really negative impact. And I found, like, once I cleaned house and I kept the people that were magnetized to the energy that I wanted to create and build, and repelled those that didn't, the entire group improved. So
I think what you've just explained is the evolution of the real estate business from the old style brokerages. And I believe, honestly, I believe the big brokerages are broken. There's all the big franchises. I was a Century 21 franchisee for 21 years. I believe the systems that they employ, and this is all of them. I'm not picking, I just mentioned that one. It can be Coldwell Banker, it can be all of them. I think that those systems are broken because they're based on numbers. They're not based on quality. They're based on quantity. And look, I was that person, right? I had, oh, you know what? They're okay. They did their 2 deals this year. I made a couple of bucks. They're not something. I had this coach way back when by the name of Mike Berry, not Ferry, Mike Berry. We was in the Century 21 system. And he said, you need to get rid of people that aren't doing any business because they're just taking up space, everything. So yeah, but we would say, but they don't cost us anything. And
Right.
Mike would basically say, they breathe your air. And that's what Mike would say, right? So he says, look, just do it. And a mutual friend of ours said to me one day, he says, look, Dave, I'm going to come up to your office. I'll fire everybody. We'll rebuild your brokerage right from the start. I should have said yes. And anybody out there that knows me that was in my brokerage, I'm not sorry for that comment because it's true. I should have done it because I was broken. My brokerage was broken. The reason I actually walked away from it 7 years ago was because I just couldn't work with people that didn't want to work. But you found the secret, or you just decided that it was time to evolve the business to this. And that's what we're seeing today in some new brokerages, the one we both work with, and what you're doing with EXP as the Vice President of Industry Relations. Talk to me about, that change in your life, going from, this top team to going to there. Tell me what happened. Tell me what's going on there and why it's so exciting for you and what we have to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you this, like my honest, genuine answer. I mean, I've been in this role now, I think just barely 2 months. And I jokingly say, but I'm very serious. It's a perfect match. It's a dream come true. It's a dream job for me because I'm getting to tap into some my talents and my skill sets, and getting to make an impact on a community and in a company, as large as our company is, because I don't even think I realized just quite how large the back end, like the staff part of our company is, for how large we are as the agent population. I mean, there's thousands of employees, right? And with how big of a structure that is from a brokerage place, we are extremely agile. We are extremely transparent. And we work really hard to communicate, right, between all the various different departments. And that's hard to do when you're so large. But they do it. And I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm honored that, our CEO, Leo Pareja, who, is who I report to, can trust me where he will, involve me in projects and say, hey, Kendall, I need you to take this over and handle it. And here's my vision for it. Go make it happen. That's like the trust, the responsibility, the opportunity is empowering to me. And I love it. And so I'm just very grateful for it. And I'm grateful for this company. I'm grateful for the opportunities provided. I'm grateful for the leadership. I love how right now, for me, the hot topic that's happening right now, the thing I'm most passionate about right now is updating real estate professionals on the NAR settlement and what's happening with that, and helping agents transition going into August, what those changes are going to look like, what that means for the real estate industry and the community. And he's empowered me to go across the country and talk to our agents about that. And I'm doing it both live and via webinar, and just having that opportunity to give back to our industry and help us prepare for the biggest change our industry has probably ever seen or will ever see and probably our generation, right? This is such a huge change because it's a process that impacts not just us as agents, but the consumers as well, right? It's going to impact buyers and sellers, as well as the real estate agents. It's going to impact portals. It's going to impact all the ancillaries because of the way things are shifting, and it's unpredictable. So none of us know how it's all going to shake out, right? At the end of the day, what we're going to look like 12 months from now, no one knows. And so it's really an interesting time. It's a challenging time, but I think it's also a time for agents as they get educated to feel empowered in their business. There's a lot of places here to feel empowered. And so my goal is to help agents recognize that and to own their businesses, own their value, and, take us all from thrive to survive, or from survive to thrive. Sorry.
Yeah, I look at it. I look at it very similarly to the way you do. I mean, a lot of people were like, "Oh, what's going to happen? The sky is falling. that kind of thing. And, just to reiterate a little bit from my end and how this business and how this company has helped myself. I mean, I have the opportunity. I work with a great team here in New Jersey called The Line, and it's we're going to work with the best. We're going to make the best, and our goal is to keep growing and growing and do whatever it takes to get there. And our leader, Brett Sikora, basically has these great people working with us. We're all on the same level, and his goal really is his job is to love on the agents. And we're given that opportunity because of the company we're with and what we're able to do. We all work by the rules. There's no question about that. There's no rule that gets broken. We know that, and we don't let it happen. As far as the industry change and what's going to happen, we know that we've got to bring value and we've got to help as many people. And as well as I do, that the changes that are happening, it is going to be the biggest change in our industry. I remember back in the late 90s, just in New Jersey, where we didn't have agency. We had to learn what agency was. And that was, it was done haphazardly. It wasn't done well. Still, agents, we have to do this consumer information statement thing. It is not done properly at all in the entire state, and it's done improperly. It's not done when it's supposed to be done. But all this stuff, you're not going to be able to get away with anything. As far as not doing your job, that's what I mean, right? How will things change for a lot of the agents that? Will there? Let me rephrase that question. Will there be agents leaving the industry because of these changes?
So that's an interesting question. I think a lot of people are asking, and I'll say this: there's tons of speculation on that, and anything I say is pure speculation.
Sure.
However, I will say this: I think there's going to be some agents that leave the industry just for retirement purposes, right? I think we will see that, just because we have agents who have been in the business 30, 40 years. They are already close to retirement, and this is really such a huge lift in mindset and change in process.
Yeah.
That for some agents, it just might not be worth it, right? And they'll just retire out. And hopefully those thinking about retirement, please sell your business to an up and coming agent to take over that sphere of influence that you've built, that referral that you've built, and leverage that as a income source for you as you phase out of this industry. I do think that there are a huge majority of agents that are still unaware of not only what's happening, but the magnitude and the shift. And I know this because as I'm doing these talks, I hear agents ask me questions as if literally this is the first time that they're hearing about it, even though this lawsuit has been going on for 5 years, right? So, and we've been talking about it. I've been talking about it on stages for 2 years, almost 2 years. So I don't know that we'll see as big of a shift of agents leaving the industry as we think, as rapidly as we think. I think that it'll just depend on how the consumer reacts to these changes. That's the biggest question mark, is how the consumer reacts and behaves will, I think, ultimately dictate what agents ultimately do in response.
So as I spoke with, I did my broadcast last week, and our mutual friend Grant Wise was my guest, and I gave him the opportunity to talk about this phrase that I hear a lot since this settlement, since this whole thing, is everybody says, well, you know what? You got to bring value. You listen to that those two words, bring value. And agents say, well, I do that now. I do a consultation. They tell me how many bedrooms. No, that's detail intake. That's data intake, right? And I hear this, and I want to scream when I hear people start saying, well, this is what you got to. Nobody says what to do, how to do it. We all know what we have to. Well, most of us know what to do. Is you got to bring value. It's not just a data intake. When I say bring value, what does that mean to you, and how would you promote that among buyer and seller agents?
I am so glad you asked that, Dave, because that is actually one of my biggest pet peeves is that agents would say, oh, or leaders would say, oh, now you have to articulate your value. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, be more specific. What,
Right.
how do we, how do
It's
you?
like I hear it, I said, holy shit, come on, man. No one. Go ahead. Sorry.
So my response to that was I wrote an article for Inman and about it and very detailed explaining to agents because the question was, or the challenge is when you're dealing with agents who either have never, most agents on the buy side have never had to really build an entire value proposition because they didn't have to explain their um, compensation to a buyer because it was already handled as a unilateral offer of compensation in the MLS. So you didn't have to explain it to a buyer what you were getting paid and why typically, and what all you would do for that. And especially in most states. And now more recently in the last year or so, we're seeing more states start to require agreements. But again, it was still simply handled because the buyer ultimately wasn't responsible for paying it. It was being paid by the listing brokerage
Right.
as a result of pending a contract and getting it closed out. So agents were wholly unprepared to be able to just say, oh, as a buyer's agent, I know how to articulate my value. But we've seen most recently NAR, realtor.com, various lists come out. These are all the things that an agent does. Well, that all might be true and that is all great. And I think agents need to understand that and consumers do as well. But when you're in a competitive environment, which let's be clear, working with the buyer is going to get even more competitive after August 17th than it is today. You need to be able to stand out. You need to identify, how do I create my unique value proposition? So I wrote an article and I do have it unlocked. If you go to my Linktree or kendallbonner.com, there is a link out to this article. And on this article, I talk about how to build a value proposition that is unique to you as a professional. What value and technology are you bringing to the customer experience? What resources and services are you providing? What training do you have that's specific and unique to you? How are you solving the customer's problems, right? Like I asked some questions and I help through the article agents to think about how they might answer those questions so that they can build a value proposition.
Right.
And so that for me is, how I responded to this because I, like you, Dave, was like, what? That's not helpful. At the end of the day, just to leave it there. Because yes, that's true, but we've got to take it a bit further because agents are going to be lost if we don't.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it goes back to industry. I hate to use the word standards, but the industry standards need to be picked up. It all starts with, the leaders having better principles of what they stand for and what they do. And, it's just going to be like life. I mean, things change and things are going to improve. And a lot of things have to do with just going back to what you said. I mean, leadership, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to lead your buyers and lead your sellers? I mean, we go through different scenarios on our team every week. The different scenarios that are coming up, how to approach them, how to handle them. And one of the things we have to do also, and I want agents to understand this as well, and I'm sure you'll agree, is we have to be able to react to other agents, whether it be a buyer agent or a seller agent, and how they're running that listing, that particular transaction, because a lot of it just doesn't make sense. Like there's a situation where someone can't understand why they're not getting any offers, where, he says, well, he tells all the agents, well, I'm getting 4% and you got to get it from your buyer. Well, okay, guess what? You just lost people. And that's the wrong reason, but it happens all the time. That's just a stupid little example, but we have to be able to react. Is there something you can, I mean, it's common sense to react in a way that is not controversial, but how do you react to other agents not doing things the way it should be done?
Oh, well, I'm a firm believer in, there are only so many things you can control, and things
Right.
that are not in your control, you have to let go. So I don't focus on things I cannot control. I do try to focus on the things that are in my purview. And I focus on areas where I feel like I can influence and share best practices and ideas. And so, for example, to something that you said, one of the things that I'm talking about in my NAR settlement updates talk is how to talk to sellers about compensation, right? And just to give you an idea of what that talk track looks like or sounds like, one, I do think the days of listing agents telling a seller, if you don't offer a co-broke commission at X amount, or no one's going to show your home, are over. I don't think listing agents should say that anymore. The DOJ and the plaintiffs have all been very clear, like they feel like that is a problem. It's related to some legal terms called tying and matching. Like we need to stop saying things like that. However, there are better ways, I think, to communicate with the seller about compensation and buyer agent commissions that are different and unique and help a seller to make an informed decision. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal, is for the seller to decide and for it to be negotiated, at the time they receive offers and things of that nature. And so, one of the things I'm explaining to listing agents is start using the language and buyer agent commission is a marketing incentive to the buyer, because the buyer is ultimately responsible for paying their agent's compensation. So that's one way that a seller can think about it. The other thing a seller needs to be thinking about when they list their home and they go to market their home is buyer affordability. Before, we used to tell a seller, hey, list your home at $499.99, not $505, because at $499.99, you're going to get more buyers, right?
Yep.
Now we have to add in language that say, hey, listen, buyers are coming to the table with additional increased closing cost. You have an opportunity as a seller to help the negotiation along through these factors. It could be in price, it could be in concessions, it can be in your willingness to pay the buyer agent's commission. Seller, what would you like to do? These are your options and how you can help market your home in a way that is more enticing to buyers. That's up to you. And agents who are both buyer agents and listing agents need to understand that we are not responsible for making decisions about what homes a buyer sees. The buyer gets to choose what homes they will or will not look at based on what they can afford and what makes sense for them and the vision and the dream that they have. And so agents, you have to get out of trying to control a situation and start just leading. Leadership and control are not always the same thing. Sometimes, so it's like, stop trying to control and just focus on leading. And when you're leading your buyers, giving them good advice, giving them and letting them make the decision and tell you what direction to go in, that is our role. It is not to tell the buyer what they should do. It should be to advise the buyer and the seller on their options and let the buyers and sellers direct us. That is how we protect ourselves in this industry and keep it, safe and transparent and, along the lines of and safe from us getting sued again, right? Because there's nothing preventing, if we don't change our behaviors, we could end up in more lawsuits in the future. So the best way to do that is to see ourselves in the role of consultant. Like I tell my agents all the time, it's like, you're not their attorney. You're their advisor. You're their real estate advisor. You're not their attorney. It's not your job to advocate as an attorney would. Your job is to advocate their position and their request, not your version of what their request should be. I hope that makes sense, because think about what you're doing. There is a distinction there.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, it just talks about, what our situation is. These are the problems that are coming forward to you. Lead your client into the position of, okay, here's my decision. Here are my options. This is what you're bringing to me. Okay, so what do I do? And they can ask questions from there. So what I say when I do content and when I do talk to sellers and buyers, and they say, well, the question always is like, who should I use as a real estate agent? I said, your real estate agent choice is dependent upon not the questions you have to ask them, but the questions they have to ask you, right? So it's all based on the questions. The most important thing, the way I coach and train agents and the way I help people try to excel in their business is be the most inquisitive one. And when you are inquisitive, you can bring options. which is exactly what you just talked about. And that's where you can really grow a great business, because people are going to start talking about you because you made them think. Because
Yeah.
let's face it, right? One of the things you coach with John Cheplack, and one of the things I'm going to tell you is that if you ever had a question for him, I guarantee you that he rarely gave you an answer. Ever, ever, right? I've known John for 15, 16 years. And one of the things about John is that he has had the same line, the same stuff since I have known him. He is the most consistent human being on this earth, right? And anytime I had a question or a problem, John would say, well, he would ask me a question about it. Grant does the same thing, right? Grant's always been really good at that. And so it's like you say, well, John, I need help, or Grant, I need help. And then all of a sudden you ask your question, and all of a sudden he asks you a question. Oh, shit. I knew he was going to do this to me. But this is what we have to do for our sellers and our buyers. That's why I bring that up.
Mhm.
You agree with that? Does that make sense to you?
It does. I absolutely agree that the number one tool, or I don't know if it's a tool, but it's definitely a skill, is being able to ask good questions. And it was funny because my husband was running a call this morning with our listing agents, and one of our listing agents was describing a challenge she was having with the seller. And I said, I'm going to remind you of something that I think you forgot. Either you never did, or you forgot to remind her of you've never found out her motivation.
Right.
And you only find out a customer's motivation through asking tons of questions. And when customers give you pushback and they get focused on all the wrong things, your skill in finding out their motivation will allow you to tie them back to their motivation and why they're buying or selling, to get them off the fence, or remind them of why, like, this small thing that they're focused on is not really relevant to the bigger picture. So, your main job is to find out a client's motivation, because that is the only, we cannot make people buy and sell real estate. Like, you can't make them do it.
No.
So the only thing you can do is remind them of why they wanted to do this, and point them back to what their motivation is in this transaction. And I will say this too, as a real estate advisor, I think I used to coach my agents to always identify three things when talking to customers in negotiations. What are their options? What are their obligations? And what are their opportunities? And to understand that every client and every transaction has options, they have obligations, and they have opportunities, and they're buried in the contracts, they're buried in the different experiences, the requests that they have. And
Right.
when you can start to advise a customer on those various categories, you become very valuable to them, because you're informing them and you're getting them to think about the things and the decisions they have to make, and in order to give you the direction on what to do next, what the next steps are, in a way that most professionals are not. So think about it from that perspective.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And kind of, I could go on for hours with this conversation, but unfortunately we're limited to time. And this has been great. There's so many things that are left that I haven't been able to talk about yet, but it's been fantastic. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. Just one other thing. I mean, with everything that's happening, is there a little bit of advice you could give agents out there, what to beware of, or what they need to do in order to move forward and to evolve?
Yeah, I mean, I like to tie it back to one of my favorite quotes by Alvin Toffler. He said, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those that cannot read and write, but those that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." And I think that statement couldn't be more powerful or more meaningful than it is right now. Right now is the time to learn. It is the time to unlearn, and it is the time to relearn. And a lot of the things that you should be doing, could be doing, or need to be doing, you've already learned. And these are the things that are going to help you thrive in 2025 and beyond, in this new world. And so focus on what you need to learn, unlearn, and relearn, so that these changes don't smack you in the face, and instead you can take them head on, and be one of the many agents that do really well in the coming months and years.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on today. We're now putting up your contact information on the bottom. We have your Instagram up. as well as kendallbonner.com. And the article you talked about is on your link tree. So there's your link tree right there. And if you can't find that there, find you on Instagram. It's linked to your link tree is there as well. Just two quick things, Kendall, and I'm going to let you go. Number one is really a very important question I ask everybody on this broadcast as I end it. And I'm always sincere about it. And I just want you to ask you this question. How do I help you grow your business?
Oh, thank you for that. I mean, for me, I have a hard time asking anybody for anything every time anyone asks me that. But I would just say that continuing to stay in touch and, sharing best practices. I love what you're doing. And I value you and I, like I said, we have a lot of the same friends. We respect a lot of the same people. And I say, keep doing what you're doing, because as you improve the industry, it definitely improves my job as well. And so I think they work hand in hand. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And I'm going to continue what I'm doing. And on that note, next week, July 5th, we have Alec Cheplack coming on. We've used another name, John Cheplack. They are related. Alec helps agents grow their business through fitness, nutrition, and a better life for themselves. And Alec's a great, great guy. He's got a lot of energy, and he's just amazing. If you're not following him, you should be. And with that being said, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I know you've been waiting for this because everybody gets one. And, here it is. Here's the hat. We'll send that off to you. I want to thank everybody for watching today. It's been a great, great broadcast, as they all are. Kendall, just stay on for a second as we go off. Everybody, thank you. We'll see you next week with Alec Cheplack. Hit it, Nelson.